How's it going, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of Nasty Bunch and Beyond. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. I'm joined, as always, by my co host, Drew Johnson. You can find both of us on X at Dalton underscore Trigg and at Coach Drew 33. If you want some discounted Southern Miss merch, be sure to go to thetopmerch.shopify.com and use our promo code Nasty Bunch Pod to get 20% off your entire purchase. This episode is also brought to you by Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi. If you want a completely customized trailer to fit your needs in a timely manner, good quality stuff, come see me. I'll be glad to help you out. DJ, we have some stuff to talk about Southern Miss wise. We were going to, and Harles is very happy to see everybody.
We're
If you're
stoked.
watching, if you're watching on YouTube or on Substack, Harles is very. I was going to mention the Mavs cat stuff that we've done over the years, but I feel like a lot of people that's kind that's kind of something we've got to break people into. They don't know about Mavs cat yet, but maybe we can have a Southern Miss cat going forward.
Well, she volunteers.
Or when it comes baseball season, Harles can be the Southern Miss rally cat.
Yeah, the rally cat. Fun fact
Well,
about Charles: she doesn't have claws. She has mittens, as you can see. She has little white mittens, just like baseball gloves. They're gonna be little white baseball gloves.
that's right. Harles the rally cat.
That's
That's
right.
what we're gonna go with.
Oh, she rallies.
Uh,
Right.
okay, so we had some stuff we were going to talk about heading into this one. You know, the coaching search, so we thought, was still going on. Uh, I had some personal thoughts. I had finally come to the conclusion after thinking about it for a few days that the best case scenario for Southern Miss football was to try your best to go out and hire Hugh Freeze because I mean, look, I get it. There was a misconduct scandal that he had at Ole Miss back in 2017 that forced him to resign. He's had a bad rep since then. Um, but that's almost 10 years ago now, and he's won everywhere he's been except for Auburn, and he was hovering around 500 at Auburn. So given that he's a Southern Miss grad, but I still wouldn't have considered that like a one of us type of hire because, he got his degree at Southern, but he's not like, tied to the school other than that. So, you know, because of that, I was thinking, this could be a chance for him to reset. He's been successful everywhere he's been except for Auburn. I think he would have done incredible at Southern Miss and kind of, rebuilding his reputation, even though he has a reputation as a winning coach um, overall. But Southern Miss has already gotten rid of all the drama. At like literally as we were getting ready to record here, the news dropped that Southern Miss has officially hired Blake Anderson as the full-time head coach going forward. And let me tell you, DJ, I'm not mad at this hire at all. I do think it was the safe hire that we've talked about it before, but I'm not mad at it at all because Blake Anderson overall in his coaching career has a 74-54 record. He has 3 conference championships on his resume. He has 2 with Arkansas State, 1 with Utah State. In his time at Utah State, they were 11-3. He led a big turnaround there. So I'm not mad at it. The guy can obviously coach. He has a lot of experience. I think in a time of transition like this, there's something to be said for that. Having some sort of consistency. Look, I'd be lying to you if I told you I knew, how entrenched Blake Anderson is, like in the recruiting stuff, like in-state recruiting and all that kind of stuff. But he has shown that he can win at a D1 level, and especially in the Sun Belt where he's at again now, winning those 2 conference titles with Arkansas State. I'm not mad at it, DJ, and I think the players obviously like him. He was here on that Fedora staff that won the Conference USA championship in 2011. Went to number 6 Houston and dismantled them at their place. And look, at the time, several people were wanting us to sign, to hire Blake Anderson then when Fedora was leaving, and it didn't happen. Went with Ellis Johnson, which was the kiss of death at the time.
Mhm.
So, uh, fast forward 14 years later, here we are, and Blake Anderson is officially your new head football coach after Coach Huff took the job at Memphis. So, again, it is the safe hire. And look, because he's been the interim head coach for several days now since Huff left. Like this entire week, he's already been named the interim head coach, and I'm sure that Jeremy McClain and the rest of the Southern Miss administration went through just like checking in with people. We mentioned some names on the last pod, including Hugh Freeze, who we talked about at the beginning of this one. I'm sure they did their due diligence, but at the end of the day, whether it was whether other guys were willing to take the job, whether it was a money thing, all the different factors that were involved, they decided to go with Blake Anderson. And again, I'm not mad about it. It was the safe hire, but I think it'll be okay, especially for the long. This isn't like a situation, in my opinion, like when Will Hall was hired, for example. So, that's my thoughts on it. What are your thoughts on Blake Anderson being the new football coach?
I pretty much mirror what you're saying, man. Like we talked a little bit before we hopped on here. We both said, this is the safe hire, and it may turn out okay. But I would have really liked to have seen us swing for the fences, maybe bring in a Hugh Freeze or someone like that who may have some connections to some potential Power Four transfers. Because at the end of the day, I mean, in today's game, that's how you win at the lower levels of college football. Is you bring in guys where it didn't work out, elsewhere at like a Power Four conference, and you bring them here and they go to work, right? Well, I don't know if Coach Anderson has this kind of connections. Only time will tell. Um, I do believe in his ability to coach, but as we know, it's not about the X's and O's. It's about the Jimmies and Joes. Who can we bring in? And so time will tell if this was a good hire. And I think we'll get a pretty good idea of what we're dealing with, not in this year's recruiting class because he's kind of coming in at the tail end of everything, but probably the next year. We'll probably have a pretty good idea of what we're dealing with in about 2 years.
Yeah.
But I like Coach Anderson. He's part of Southern Miss lore as it is, as a
Yep.
champion. We talk about championship DNA. He's got it. He's got it. He's a former conference champion right here in Hattiesburg. So, hopefully this works out. I hope it
Yeah.
works out. But I do think it was the remarkably safe option.
Yeah. And that, another big thing, another big part of this is, who does he end up hiring as his offensive and defensive coordinators? Because pretty much the entire staff, or a good portion of the staff, is heading with Coach Huff to Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
And Anderson was the offensive coordinator here, so now he's got to find his own offensive coordinator, or he, at least hire somebody in that position, and he's still calling the shots as head coach. But that brings me to my next point, DJ. A lot of people are kind of concerned and, wondering about the offense, because there were several times this year where it seems like the offense stalled out. Now, given the last three games, a lot of that was because of, Braylon Braxton being hurt.
Yeah.
That affected things a lot, but, a lot of people didn't. Look, I was early in the season, I was pretty critical of like the early down screen passes that were being called. And the only reason I was so like I don't like that as much is because it seemed like every 3 out of 4 times they would run something like that. Um, you would probably get a 4 yard loss or so. And it just sets you back behind the sticks. And I didn't like how that turned out. But they proved several times that if it's ran correctly, it can work, because we saw that at Arkansas State when Liddy came in for Braxton and threw that perfectly executed screen pass to Elijah Metcalf, and it was like 70+ yard touchdown. So they can work, but there were just so many of them early on in the season that didn't work. That was the only thing I was kind of critical of. My other point is, do we know, like, and maybe anybody listening to this knows more about this than I do on the inside, but like, was Anderson making all the offensive calls this past year, or was there, like, some tugging going on between him and Coach Huff? Did they have clashing philosophies on offense? I don't know what the exact answer to that is, but I just feel like, there was more of a, I don't know. There was less conservative calls in my, at least in the passing game, back in 2011 when Anderson was the offensive coordinator for Fedora. So that's the one reason why I'm kind of wondering about that, and I'm interested in seeing how it plays out this next season because look, Blake Anderson is a very talented offensive mind and very talented offensive football mind. Like he knows what he's doing. I'll be interested in seeing how different the playbook looks next season compared to what it was this season, and then we can kind of dissect and say, hey, this, okay, I remember this from last year. This was fully Blake Anderson. Oh, okay. And we're not seeing this anymore. So maybe that was Coach Huff, him sprinkling in something. So that's one aspect of it because I think that you can have those situations where styles might clash a little bit and you may want to, the coordinator might think this is best, head coach might think this is best. Well, guess what? The head coach overrules that more times than not. So I'm very interested in seeing how that plays out next season.
Do you think that his play call style and his just overall football philosophy mirrors more so Fedora?
I would say so. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
so.
Because Fedora, I don't want to say Fedora is like a Les Miles character where he's just nuts, but he took some risks and he took some big swings in games. Huff was far more conservative. So, I if he does bring that level of excitement back to Southern Miss football, I mean, I'm here for it. But at the end of the day, what do we really care about here? Wins, baby. We care
Oh,
about
winner.
wins. Just win, baby. Just win. So, we'll see. Hopefully, the big thing's going to be recruiting. I think the guy can coach football. The big thing that, we should all be, I don't want to say concerned about, but we need to be looking at is the recruiting and
Yeah,
how we do in the transfer portal. And hopefully he's able to bring in some guys at the offensive and defensive coordinator slots that will help him land some people. Hopefully he's able to get some bounce backs from some SEC schools or some Big Ten schools, you know, just trying to figure that out. But this game now is all about connections. And hopefully he brings some people in that have said connections.
yeah. And I'm sure we'll find out. I'm not sure exactly when, but I would think at least, between now and when the bowl game happens on December 23rd, we should have a better idea of how Anderson is going to build his staff. Uh, because like I said, and I mean they may not come in until after the bowl game because like I said, the rest of Huff's current staff is still on the team. All the players, all the staff members, they're all in on this New Orleans Bowl. The only person not
Good.
there is Coach Huff, and he said, he was stepping away to not be a distraction.
Mhm.
So
And the
uh,
players echoed that too. I want to say Braylon Braxton actually said that aloud, that the only reason Coach Huff isn't here is to not be a distraction. And I can appreciate that. I
yeah,
can. Plus, he's got to get it going over at Memphis. So
yeah. And speaking of that, we won't spend too much time on it because look, I've meant everything I've said about Coach Huff over the last few weeks. I'm very appreciative that he came over from Marshall. To come from Marshall, where you just won a conference title, and to come to Hattiesburg, taking over a team that was just 1-11, and 3-9 the year before that. to come into that type of situation and to do what he did this year. And I know it didn't end the way we wanted it to, but to go 7-5 and all that, that was, I appreciated that. I think that was great. And for him to take this job at Marshall when he did, that's fine. I get why he did it. You got to do what's best for your family and everything. I will say this though, DJ, I was kind of irked, and I get it. This may just be part of his thing, but in the press conference with Memphis, he was talking about the process of how he found out he got the job at Memphis, and he referred to Southern Miss as the other place. And DJ, it's not a big deal. It shouldn't matter as much. Like, I'm not gonna, after this pod, I'm never gonna talk about it again. But I just have to say it kind of irked me a little bit. Like,
Sounds negative. Usually,
yeah,
whenever you address like a past place, like that you've worked, you call it the other place. It insinuates that you're not wanting to name a place like by name, which
correct.
to me, I
Which,
thought
and I
we had
mean,
a
look,
good run.
to be fair, to be completely fair, he did the same thing when he talked about Marshall after he came from Marshall to Southern.
But it was a negative. It was a negative
Correct.
meeting. Yeah,
Things ended badly at Marshall.
Like, I don't understand. Like,
Yeah.
I thought we were cool, coach, but that to me it just sounds it sounded a little disrespectful. That's the way I took it. It sounded a little disrespectful. But I'm like you. I'm never going to think about it again. But right now, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're you kind of rubbing the injury in the dirt a little bit.
I just thought it was unnecessary to refer to Southern Miss and to refer to Hattiesburg as the other place. They didn't deserve that.
Yeah.
They didn't deserve that. They gave him everything he wanted as far as, contract. He had everyone in Hattiesburg at his beck and call whenever he started winning. So I really thought that comment was a little out of pocket, as the kids say today.
And look, we don't know what the intention. He probably, I mean, that may just be how he goes about his business. He may not have meant anything negative about it, but it did give off a negative. It gave off a negative vibe to me. So, I again, I was irked by it. I get it. It doesn't matter anymore. Still very appreciative for everything Coach Huff did, and him and his family are great. But that was kind of it rubbed me the wrong way. So and I'm sure Zoe didn't like it either. So
no, Zoe was displeased.
Okay, so all the coaching stuff, we know Blake Anderson is the head coach moving forward. We got that little tidbit about Huff out of the way. Just had to say something. Now we're moving on. We've got the New Orleans Bowl coming up, DJ. The December 23rd, be playing Western Kentucky. It's one of those teams. It's kind of like South Alabama, DJ. We never can get over the hump against Western Kentucky. We're 0-4 against them all time. I'll never forget, we played them in the 2015 Conference USA Championship. Me and Amy actually drove up to that game. It was an unfortunate blowout loss. Well, not blowout, but it ended up getting kind of ugly toward the end of it. So not the greatest of memories playing Western Kentucky, but we're playing them now again. And I think we can beat them. I mean, I think with Braxton at full strength and, the rest of the guys coming back, the way Blake Anderson put it in a press conference earlier, I think it was yesterday when he had that press conference, he said 99%, of the roster was going to be playing. So, and Braxton's going to be playing, Josh Moten's going to be playing, Chris Jones, all the veteran leaders on this team are going to be in New Orleans playing. So I'm excited about it. What you think about the New Orleans Bowl coming up?
I think it's a golden opportunity to get a get back that is, way too long coming, honestly. And I'm like you. I think we have the horses to do it. I worry about, the sudden change in head coaches. That's going to impact. I know Coach Anderson's been there, but it's still going to be different without Coach Huff at the helm. And it's simply just out of habit for the kids because, that's who they're used to taking, direction from, at least ultimately. So I think we have the potential to do it. I think a lot of it has to do with how we adapt.
Yeah. I think it could be done. I mean, I think the guys are. I think they like Coach Anderson enough, and I mean, I get it. It's not all about liking your coach. You got to go out there and do the job too. But I think there's enough in place to where things aren't going to be. They're not going to change as much. And look, we talked about the potential. Like again, I don't know how it is. I don't know how the dynamic was between Huff and Anderson. But if there was, some sort of clashing of offensive philosophies, then I'm wondering if we might start to see some of the differences in this bowl game. Yeah. This coming up. Yeah, exactly. Zoe even said yeah to that. So, uh, who knows? Maybe if I tell you what, DJ, I know there's going to be a lot of roster turnover because there's a lot of seniors on this team, and Braxton's leaving, so you got to figure out who the quarterback is going forward and all that. But if we come out and just run Western Kentucky out of New Orleans, that is going to be that's going to send so many good vibes across the fan base and the school going into the off season. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be great. I got my tickets the other day. You're not going to be able to go because you're going to be having a baby, another baby.
You hear that, Zoe? You're going to have a little sister. Are you excited?
Literally the day before the bowl game. So, or somewhere around. I think that's right. The bowl game is on the 23rd. So, but look, hey, I know you'll be cheering on in spirit. You'll probably be watching it. So, should be a fun time. I'm expecting win or loss. I'm going to be thoroughly enjoying myself. In the first bowl game we've been a part of since 2022. So I mean, it's been 3 long years. It should be fun. Prediction time though, DJ. I you know how I get. I'm very optimistic. I tend to be more optimistic than what a lot of people think I should be when it comes to sports stuff. But I'm going to be optimistic again. I think we go out and win this game. I'm going to say 31-21 against Western Kentucky.
That's not too bad for you. That's not too bad. You're usually astronomical. I'll say this. So it's going to be a weird prediction. If we win by 3, and it's going to be 30-27. If we lose, we get blown off the field, and it's going to be, like 60-3 or something like that.
I hope it's not that bad.
I hope it's not that.
That's gonna if it's that bad, we're gonna have we're gonna have some really bad vibes going.
Well, I'm like the bold-faced opposite of you whenever it comes to predicting things. I'm like the eternal pessimist. So, no, I think we have a good shot to win this game. I think it'll be incredibly competitive, and I think it's just going to be a really close game. But I don't think I have a hard time believing that we'll blow them out. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But I don't. But because of like all the recent, upheaval that's happened within the past, week and a half, it wouldn't surprise me. Again, I'm not going to say this is going to happen, guys. So don't come at me with, your digital pitchforks. But all I'm saying is, it would not surprise me if all of this is just too much. Right. And there's the focus, despite what everyone is saying, just isn't there right now. And rightfully so. I can totally understand that. I hope
I do
that.
too. But, and with all that being said, I really love what I've seen out of Anderson since he's taken over, and from the players stepping up as leaders, and
Mhm.
some of the stuff they've said, and the team kind of, they've used this. It's an unfortunate situation where a guy is leaving before the season's over. Maybe not to the extent that what Ole Miss has gone through, but
Whew.
a guy is leaving before the season's over. But they're using this, I almost feel like, as a bonding moment, and I'm very interested in seeing how it plays out on the field. Because look, if Coach Anderson does what I think he's going to do, taking over, the full offense for this game, and then another factor into this, DJ, is Braylon Braxton, who was dealing with the knee issue the last couple games, last 3 games of the season. There was a report the other day. Anderson said that Braxton no longer has the knee brace on, and that he's been running around at practice like he normally does. So if Braxton is 100%, DJ, I mean, that's look, that changes things, obviously, because that's one thing that killed us in those last 3 games. He didn't have his mobility. He wasn't able to break out of some of those sacks that he was able to get out of earlier in the season that helped lead us to that 7-2 record.
Mhm.
He was just, if guys didn't hold their blocks and give him the cleanest of pockets, it was over with. And that hindered the offense those last 3 games. So I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be a good time. Regardless of what happens on the field, it's always a good time in New Orleans. And it just so happens it works out to where our Dallas Mavericks are playing in New Orleans against the Pelicans literally the night before the New
Uh,
Orleans Bowl.
well, I'm jealous that you're going to be able to go to that, but I'm going to be under wraps. So
That's okay. That's okay. As far as the basketball stuff goes, they're back in New Orleans sometime in March, so we can circle back and maybe do something then.
I hope my bosses let me go. One of them isn't even alive yet, but
Yeah. Well, DJ, we're not gonna stay on here too much longer, but I did want to end this one by giving a shout, because it's Nasty Bunch and beyond for a reason. We gotta give a shout out.
we
Shout
got to
out to
go
the
beyond.
That's right. Shout out to the women's basketball team, the Fighting Bilderbacks. They had a really tough time in Cancun playing against UAB and NC State, and then they went to SMU. Didn't they play at SMU?
Yes, it was at
Yeah,
SMU.
that was immediately after Cancun.
Yes.
Yes, it was a tough stretch away from Reed Green Coliseum. They lost those games. Well, then they came home and they got a big win over UAB. They avenged that loss that they had to UAB in Cancun and won that one. So that was great to see. Shout out to them. And then, speaking of avenging losses from earlier in the season, the men's team did the same exact thing. Monday night this week, they played Grambling State at Reed Green Coliseum, and they won. And dude, that was a close game. And let me tell you this: I know people were upset about that Grambling State loss earlier this season when we played at Grambling, but after watching those dudes play up close and personal, I can see why we lost that first game, because their
Yeah.
defense, top to bottom, was rock solid. There was no drop off when they went to the bench. Their rotations were crisp. They were making the right, I say calculated gambles. Like, they weren't just being reckless with getting their hands in passing lanes and stuff. They were taking the right type of gambles, and they were long and athletic. And I was impressed with them from a defensive standpoint. But I'm glad that we were able to break through and we got the win, 68-60 over Grambling State at Reed Green. So now we move the men's team. They move to a record of 6-4. And they got a big one coming up, big non-conference game against Ole Miss coming up this weekend in Biloxi. And look, I know it doesn't count as far as, like, conference standings and all that stuff, but still an in-state rivalry. And look, let me tell you, it may not happen, but I think we have a good shot of winning this game if the same team that shows up in the second half of that Grambling State game shows up uh, in Biloxi this weekend, because Ole Miss, they're talented. They started out the season 5-0, but guess what? They've lost 4 in a row,
Yep.
and they haven't won on the road or at a neutral site yet. So, we'll see how it goes for them. But I'm very excited about this upcoming game for the men against Ole Miss this weekend.
Yeah, Ole Miss is having some interesting things going on in the locker room, I think. Just based on press conferences and stuff that I've seen, it looks a little bit interesting. Coach Beard, he's a fantastic coach, first of all, but he's incredibly confrontational, which that's the way you have to be. But I don't know, man. It's something's cooking in that locker room. When there's smoke, there's fire. Maybe we can sneak up on them and get them whenever they're fighting amongst themselves, rather than being focused on what's ahead.
I know one thing: if we are going to get that win, and I really do, I think we can. Um, if we are going to win, though, we got to shoot better from three than we did against Grambling, because I think we
Yeah.
ended up shooting around 18, 19% from three for the game. And it was like 13% at halftime. And I was thinking, like, surely, these odds are going to even out by the end of the game. But it really didn't even out that much. So I'm interested in seeing how the 3-point shooting goes. If we can get around, even upper, or I mean lower 30s, that would help out a lot. But you can't shoot sub 20% from three and expect to get a win over a SEC team, even if it's a neutral site game. So I'm very excited about that. I think Tavares will be up for the challenge. I think I look for Benet to have a bounce back game. He didn't have the best of games against Grambling State, but dude, shout out to Tegra Ize.
Mhm.
He won. Big number 22. He played big, especially in that second half. And like I said, Benet was not having his best game. Izzy came in there and was dominant on both sides of the ball. So shout out to that dude. In my opinion, I mean it's a team game, obviously, but in my opinion, Izzy single-handedly won that game for Southern Monday night at Reed Green against Grambling State. So
I thought
uh,
Weeks played a good game too. I thought Weeks
we
made some really big time shots down the stretch. Um, you know, eh, they need to be more efficient if they're going to take down a team like Ole Miss. Even on a bad day, Ole Miss is going to be tough and they're going to be efficient. They're incredibly well coached, as I said previously. So we've got to be efficient.
yeah.
We've got to be efficient. We
Ty-
got to trim down the turnovers and not force things. I feel like sometimes we force things going to the rim. We need to learn
yeah.
when we're driven too deep. What's wrong, Bug?
Well, look, Tyleek Weeks is always solid. Isaac Tavares is always solid. We know what we're going to get from those guys. Like Isaac Tavares, he was your leading scorer. He's always going to fill it up.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think, role play. You have to have certain guys step up in certain spots, and that's what I think. With Izzy, he stepped up in such a big spot, and I love to see it because I've seen how he's progressed, even going back to like last year to this year, and he's just so much more under control, and he's running the floor better. I think he had some injury stuff he was dealing with, so it was great to see. So, shout out to him and shout out to the men's basketball team, and it was Coach Ladner's birthday.
Hey,
On Monday as well. So, happy belated birthday to Coach Ladner. And I'm glad that they were able to get the win for him, and hopefully the good times keep rolling because look, this team has, going back to that Houston Christian exhibition game, this team has come a long way, and I think they can do some big things in conference play if they continue to stack good days, so to speak, and keep building. So, one more shout out, our guy DJ Cujo. I ran into him the other day at a corner market, and we were talking about it. He will be back next season in the Rock
all
2026.
right.
So he will have the place jumping, and obviously he's at the basketball games too, keeping Reed Green jumping. He does a great job. So shout out to DJ Cujo. We're gonna have him on the pod in the near future at some point. So yeah, you guys be on the lookout for that. But love that dude. He has brought some incredible energy to Southern Miss athletics. So I'm hoping they can get him down in New Orleans for the New Orleans Bowl at the Superdome. We'll see
That'd
how
be
it goes.
sweet. That'd be
That would
sweet.
be awesome. Now I don't know, maybe a conflict of interest type of thing if they did that, but I personally would love it. So all right, guys, we appreciate y'all coming in and listening to us every time we record an episode. Be sure to go like, rate, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Leave us some comments. If you if you want to expand on something we've talked about, or if you disagree with a take we have, that's fine too. Let us know in the comments. We love interacting with all that, and seeing the different perspectives out there. But we appreciate it, y'all. Be sure to go leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and a rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Really helps us out. We appreciate it, and we hope you guys have a great rest of your week and have a great weekend. We will see y'all next time. We'll probably sometime before the New Orleans Bowl. We'll probably come on here and have a more detailed type of breakdown of what we're going to be watching. But for now, we kind of covered the basics on that. But appreciate it, y'all. Have a great one. We'll see you next time.
See you later, guys.